Jackiem, Joyner, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, what's going on, Kino? Thanks for welcoming me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, yeah, nice to meet you. How you doing? How's
I'm
your morning so far? It is morning, right?
yes. It's just about 11 a.m. So when I first heard that you were going to be we were going to be talking. You're in South Africa. I was saying to
Yeah,
myself,
yeah,
"Wow, what time is that on Pacific Standard Time?" But yeah, it's good to be on board, and to have a good chat for you. I'm looking forward to a lot of this. This will be good.
yeah. Same here. So, where about are you based exactly?
Yeah, well, I'm based in Los Angeles, between Los Angeles and Phoenix.
Okay, nice, nice. Just off record, I was actually invited for an event in Los Angeles that was last week. The event was last week, Thursday. But man, politics is getting in the way of creatives, bro. Like,
Yeah.
check this out. Yeah, so my visa got rejected because I'm a media personality. They couldn't even give me a valid reason. How's
Oh,
that?
wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, you know, like my agent can't even put his head like around it, on what kind of a reason it actually was. Now you in Los Angeles, and I'm thinking, damn.
Yeah.
But it
Wow.
is what it is, man. It is.
I hate when the politics, interrupts our creative energy, and we're not able to connect and in the way that we want to. So I'm sorry that that happened to you, man. Hopefully, this stuff kind of cools down for everyone so that we can, so whether we're spreading the gift of music or whatever else that you do, we want it to be easy. So I'm sorry to hear that that was your experience.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, you know what I mean? It was disheartening at the start, but I got to watch the event, because it was live stream. So at least I got the privilege of still being there, even though I wasn't physically there. But yeah, all good, man. All good. It was actually one of Mickey's other clients. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. His name is John Goodwin.
I think
Not sure.
so. I think so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he hosts this event, each year, like what he's doing on his and also, the opportunities he's giving for creators worldwide. And then he has this gala, in April, or yeah, plus minus around there, March, April, just inviting all the contest winners to this event to award them.
Mhm.
So yeah, hopefully next year I'm there in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
attend
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, it's been a crazy year. I mean, we had fires early this year.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
luckily, my home wasn't one that was, affected, but a lot of friends of mine were affected by the fires here in Los Angeles. So it's just a crazy time overall. Coming to Southern California, but hopefully it'll clear up for everyone.
Yeah, I guess the world is, just going through a transformative moment at the moment. There's a lot
Yeah.
of stuff that's changing, but as I said, the politics and what happens globally between the powers of the world shouldn't affect creators such as ourselves. You
Mhm,
know,
mhm.
that
Yeah.
should never happen. That should never stand in the way. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
work that we're doing, one of the golden brush, golden pin. I think it was the golden brush of the same event that happened last Thursday. She concluded her speech by saying, not in the exact words here, but our creativity changes the world.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what we do. That
Yeah.
naturally comes, no matter whether you're an author or musician, with you, it's both, your work, that bigger purpose, changes people's lives in one
Mhm.
way or the other. That's our responsibility as creators.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we eliminate the politics out of the industry, it just makes it so much more easy for us to like change people's lives and change economies, change countries. That's what
Yeah.
art does, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was so emotional,
Yeah.
so
And
emotional for me.
yeah, it's what we do, as artists, creatives, authors. It's what we do that actually bring people together. We bring countries together. You know, we bring families together. We bring people with different political views and even religions we bring together. You know, that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, not only as an author, but as a musician, as someone who writes music. And
Yeah.
you know, it's like, who cares, you know, who wrote it or where it comes from. You know, it's just something that moves people. It's something that matters. And it just, you know, we have to keep doing this because it's what we do that's going to break, you know, the tension of the world, you know, that exists now.
Yeah.
So we have that responsibility as creative, really just to continue to be creative and continue to put our work out there unapologetically, so that we can, you know, make the world a better place. Quite frankly.
100%. Yeah, and bring more unity. Bring more unity
Yes,
in the
yes.
world. Yeah.
South Africa, I've been there. I've been to Johannesburg twice, I believe, maybe two or
Nice.
three times to perform. I don't remember where it was. I know that when I landed in Johannesburg, the first time, my phone wasn't working and I couldn't reach my road manager who landed before me. So I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where the hotel was. And you know, so but the crazy thing was, it was really close to the airport. It's this hotel that had a casino in it. It was really nice. I don't remember the name of it, but just
Emperor's Palace.
oh yeah, there you go. That's the one. Yeah,
Yeah.
it had a roller
Yeah.
coaster.
So Johannesburg is where I'm actually from. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm
See,
about, say, about 15 minutes away from Emperor's Palace,
oh wow.
give or take.
Okay.
Yeah. I
So
mean, one
cool.
of the questions I was going to ask you, have you been to South Africa? But you've already answered it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know, it's so cool because when we drove through um, Johannesburg, I don't know if we left Johannesburg, but it was so interesting because some of the areas that we went to, I was like, wow, this looks very much like a place in Syracuse, New York, or yeah, there was some modernization that I hadn't expected, you know, with apartments and homes,
Yeah.
streets. And I was like, wow, you know, people need to go for themselves.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I guess, it'll be the same feeling if I come to Los Angeles. I'll be like, wow, I haven't seen this before. I haven't
Yeah.
seen that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you come to
No.
Los Angeles and the first thing you see is Skid Row, then you got trouble because Skid Row. That's where a lot of drugs and homeless and stuff. You know, we wouldn't want you to judge Los Angeles by
Nah, man.
that.
Well, one thing I dislike in the world is being judgmental of
Mhm,
people, of culture, of religion, just as the
mhm,
world as a whole. I just see everyone as one. We just need to sort of emotionally detach ourselves, from
mhm,
what's going on around us and focus on what's actually working for us and look at all the positive aspects of, the world
mhm,
and what we can do if we just bring more togetherness,
mhm,
just like what we're doing now, just with the show alone, the more listeners we reach, the more we can push out that message to people.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah, that's quite cool.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, one blessing about doing what I do is you get to travel the world and see a lot of new places, meet a lot of
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
I've always hoped, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to travel the world. I didn't
yeah,
know that I was going to be a musician. I didn't know, and later on, I became was a surprise to me. So my
yeah.
it's a blessing, to be able to for people to hear from me honestly, and to hear from me, like my stories and my music, and so but then to take it across the world, it just makes it this whole new thing.
Yeah. I mean, the nice part about it is like you traveling the world and you traveling with purpose, you
Hmm.
know, you're not running away from any, reality.
Hmm.
That's one thing I also said to myself, I also want to see the world. I want to meet different people, different cultures, learn from other people. But it had to be driven by purpose, not like, oh no, I want to take a vacation and I want to go to Los Angeles now, for example. If I go to Los Angeles, there needs to be like a purpose behind it. Like, okay, I'm going to Los Angeles or I'm going to Thailand. But what's the purpose behind it? Why am I going there? Is that going to bring me growth with my overall mandate, for my life and my creative career? you
Mm-hmm.
know. So that's, for you. So you traveling, you sharing your artistic, work with the world. There's so much purpose behind that,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Yeah. Yes. And it's you really learn by traveling the world, It's
Yeah.
just landing in a place like Johannesburg for the very first time, that's education by itself.
Yeah.
And if you are a creative, traveling is going to make it that much more richer, whether it's music or writing. So like you mentioned Thailand, which is one of the places I want to go. Any of these places that you go to is gonna have an impact on you and impact your music and impact your stories. A lot of people I know have never, let alone traveled the world. They haven't even traveled outside of their city. So you got to get out there.
Yeah, yeah,
You got to see the world. There's so much out there, especially if you are an artist or if you are an author. You're going to get so much content from a new place.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's gonna give you an open mind.
Exactly.
100%.
Opens up your mind. Food, just the culture, the people. It's so different from where you've come from. So it changes you, really.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%, 100%. I gotta be honest with you, dude. So when I got your press release from Mickey, so I'm reading about your series. I'm like, okay, this is dope. But we're gonna get to that, later on. And then I go to your bio, and I'm like, what? He's also a musician. So anyway, today I went on to your Spotify profile. I gave you a follow, and I started jamming to your tunes, and I was like blown away, man. I was like blown away. Really on the show, like when it comes to now Mickey, it's mainly authors. So
Hmm.
really on the show, does someone come on where they've, established themselves so well as a musician, as a music producer? What you're doing with the saxophone, dude, that's magic alone. You know what I mean? That's magic alone. So, you got a story to tell. You got a story to tell. So,
Yeah.
we can start off like, day one for you, where it all started. Let's give the listeners some background history where it all started for the team, day one.
Day one. Wow. It's interesting because I didn't know I was going to play a saxophone, even though that became that became the center of my career was the saxophone. But I never thought that it would be something. If you want to say day one, I would say day one would be Sunday morning at church. I'm 11 years old. I'm watching the choir sing. I'm looking at the band. I'm looking at the piano player, and I'm just so excited. And I'm like, wow, I want to do that. I'm 11. I've never played a musical instrument except for a recorder, I think in first grade or something. But, they make you do that. But yeah, so I was excited by all of the energy coming from the band. So every Sunday when my mother would take me to church, I was always like looking forward to just watching the band. So and I managed to convince the choir director and leader that I could be in the youth choir, even though I was a little too young to be in the youth choir, and I was singing. So I started off singing before I started playing the saxophone. I was born in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia. My mother moved up to New York, Syracuse, New York, where it's a lot cooler. And cooler is an understatement. It's freezing. Freezing. So after graduating middle school and going to high school, I was about 13 or 14. I know I wanted to join the band. I remember my It's interesting because when I asked the music teacher if I could play the drums, he told me that they already have enough drummers. Yeah, it looks like I might have lost you here.
Yeah, we lost
Let's
each other
see.
for a second, but yeah, you can
I
just
think
continue.
I'll stand by and wait for you to come back. Okay, I think I lost you for a second there.
Yeah. Can you see me now?
I can see you now. I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
where I should continue from.
Yeah. No, yeah. We lost each other. Like I lost you first, and then you would lose me. That's why I'm saying, like, where I'm situated at the moment just keeps happening, which makes it hard for the shows. But you were at the part of the drummer, so you
Oh,
wanted to, yeah.
okay, yeah. So, going into high school, I wanted to play drums for the band. And the music teacher had told me that they already have enough drummers for the band.
Yeah.
So, he asked me if I wanted to play something else because in order to be in a band, I would need to either play a woodwind instrument or a brass instrument, which I didn't know what they were. So he showed me all of the different instruments, and the one that caught my attention was the one that looked the most intimidating, which was the sax, because it looked really complicated. It looked expensive, challenging,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it's so interesting because it just really, really caught my attention. My music teacher gave me a tape, and on the tape was, people like Grover Washington Jr., Charlie Parker, Cannonball, all of these artists that I didn't even know who they were at 14. And, I took the saxophone home and I was just practicing it every single day. And I think after about 3 weeks, the music teacher thought I was so good that he wanted to invite all of the students. I'm sorry, invite like the principal and teachers, that you got to see this kid. He's only been playing for 3 weeks. Look how good he is. And I was so nervous. And then I left that first school and went to another high school where I really started to get more attention with my music teacher Lou Adams in Syracuse, New York, at Fowler High School, which is where I really started to get into possibly even playing professional. Mr. Adams,
Yeah.
not with us no more. He thought I was good enough that he could take me on some gigs with him, and I was getting paid, like in the 10th grade, and 11th grade, playing saxophone, for this professional wedding band. I'm just the youngest
Yeah.
guy, you know. I'm gonna try to hurry this up, but I became pretty good in high school as a saxophone player. After graduating high school, I moved back down to Virginia, and I wanted to take center stage. I wanted to be the guy that everyone's paying attention to. I wanted to be a lead solo artist. That's what I wanted. So, I went on tour with Ronnie Laws and Gene Carn and Bobby Lyle, and you might have heard some of these names. And I decided that that's what I want to do. I want to do music full time. And then I said,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. Where am I going to live? So I remember sending a message to Gerald Albright, who was someone that I looked up to as a saxophone player. If I want to take this and make it a career, where should I live? And I think his response was, you're either going to live in New York City or Los Angeles. And I chose the one with the better weather. So I'm 23, and I'm 23 years old, and I moved to Los Angeles. All to pursue a music and career, pursue a career in music. I had to get a job. I had to work, just like everyone else. But just to make a long story short, at 27 or 26, 2006 was when I signed my first recording contract. After sending
That's the part of long story short, at 27 years old.
Yeah, 26 was when I signed my first recording contract. And
Wow.
this was after sending demos and things like that all over Los Angeles. No one listened to, it was just, everyone sending demos to record companies and stuff like that in Los Angeles. But I caught the attention of some important people in the smooth jazz and contemporary world. And I signed a contract and started doing some gigs. I put out my first album called Baby Soul, and my first single to radio called Stay With Me Tonight. I remember hearing that on 94.7 The Wave at 27. First time I ever heard my music on the radio. All of the millions of people that live in Los Angeles were listening, so that was a big moment for me, being on the radio. Are you there? Okay, there you go. I just lost you for a second. But yeah, I put out another album after that, and then I wrote a hit song, called "I'm Waiting for You," which was a #1 song for 12 consecutive weeks on the Billboard. So, and then I wrote another song that was another hit song after that one. So I had 2 #1 songs back to back in 2009. So I would say that kind of put me on the map as a contemporary jazz artist, and kind of, I don't know if I want to use the word household name. I'm still working on that, but I will say it started my career, and since then, now I think I've got about 8 or 9 albums that I've put out. I've toured all over the world and played with some amazing people, Marcus Miller, George Duke, Ronnie Laws. Just a long list of artists that I've had the opportunity to share the stage with. So, and then of course, writing came later. Storytelling.
Yeah. I mean, playing a saxophone or any sort of musical instrument or any sort of final product, within the music industry is also like storytelling.
Yeah.
Depending where you're going with it. There's some people who just put out rubbish. I'm not going to falter that. There isn't really like an emotional or, powerful story behind it. I've got to ask the question, because it's sort of so early for you. Like, how did your family feel about it, jumping straight into music as a full-time gig, full-time job at such a young age?
Yeah, well, I think for any family, first you want to support your family members, like your whether it's your mother or your brothers and different things like that. When you see someone who, like, I came from humble beginnings, we grew up in the projects, which is, not the best neighborhoods, living in, whether it's, in New York or Virginia. So, they were very inspired to see that I was going to not only just the national stage, but the world stage. Just seeing someone who came from where I came from be able to do that was, it means that anybody can do it. Really, if I could do it, anyone can do it. I consider myself to be disciplined. I practiced a lot on the saxophone. While people were out having fun, I was practicing. So I think as far as my family, I just think that people just they were inspired by it, and they continue to be.
I love how you said that, they were inspired about it. And the reason I asked that question is because, I do my best, with what I do as a consultant within the creative space to push parents to have, as you said now, I could have not said it better, to be inspired by their kids' musical talent, and not put it on the side and be like, oh no, this is just like, a hobby, not something you should really focus on, focus on your school career, focus on going to college, focus on going to university. Yeah, you can do those things, but don't lose sight of, what your kid's true passion is, because just look at what it's done for you.
Passion. Exactly. The thing about having passion and loving what you do is you just outwork everyone because you love doing it. You don't think
100%.
You don't think about how long it takes. You love, if you practice and you love it, then you'll practice, to be the best, Yes, a lot of parents do have an idea of where they want their children to go, what school they want them to go to, what they want them to do. But, nothing beats doing what you love, and making a career out of it. That's like the best thing you can ask for.
Yeah. Now there's another consultant I spoke to a few weeks ago as well. Part of his platform as well is he's got this whole section just for parents and how to deal, with their kids. When they're involved in music and they got specific talent, whether it's playing the saxophone, whether it's playing the piano, that's where they driven, that's where they want to be. So he's got like all these courses lined up. It's like, when you're having a baby for the first time, you get all these books, or to be a dad or to be a mom. So he's created, these courses for parents on how to actually navigate, the kids' career at a young age and also legally protect them. And he's passionate about, these topics as well, because he also sees it in the States, where, I'm 8 or 9 years old or 11 years old, if I had to use you as a reference, and then I'm more interested in playing the saxophone than I am in doing my homework. Instead of parents actually shouting at their kids about it, or take the saxophone away, let me rather embrace it. Let me learn more about you and why you actually so into it, and embrace it. And I feel instead of sending your kids now to an academic driven school, why not a musical school?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
It's music is just as important as anything else. Everyone listens to music, but not just music, even writing, storytelling. Everyone's reading stories. All the movies that we go and see, all of that stuff is written by someone. So a lot of parents tend to not look at creative stuff as like a career, so they will look at their children in a kind of a way that's more along the lines of, well, maybe you can do that as a hobby, but make sure that you have a backup or something like that. So hearing those messages coming up is not the easiest thing to pursue, a passion, because quite frankly, a lot of people don't look at it as something that's real, that's tangible when it comes to earning a living. And, they have a point, so to speak. But at the same time, if you really, really push yourself on what you really enjoy, what you love doing, you never know what could happen. You never know what can happen for you and what doors can open up for you.
Yeah. And putting in, the time and effort and being disciplined. As you said, while people were out partying, you were in-house, you were practicing.
Exactly.
You were focusing, you were working on your craft day in, day out.
Hours upon hours, that people will never know about the hours that people see all of the shining stuff, but they don't see all of the, the how hard it is, to put an album out. A song, or even when it comes to writing stories, you go through all of these stages of doubt and insecurities, and you say to yourself, well, no one's going to read this, or so it's and even fear in putting these things out, because when you put something out there, like whether it's music or story, it's kind of like you're opening yourself up to be criticized now. So some amazing writers or even musicians will never put their music out or their writing out because of that fear that they have of people judging, their art and their creativity, so it's getting past that point and just realizing that it's okay to put out, this is your story, this is a part of history that you're making, so anytime I'm talking with musicians or other authors, I always say, it doesn't matter if it's not even perfect. It's like you're writing your stamp in history.
Yeah. I lost you for a bit there, but I got
Oh, okay.
what you had to say about the topic.
Okay, I don't know
where
did I
struggle is real, man. Struggle is real.
Yeah, yeah,
But thanks
yeah,
for sharing
yeah.
it. So, on your musical career at the moment, before we jump into the major transition that you did for yourself, into becoming also a successful author. So, with your musical career, are you independent or are you still signed to a label?
Yeah, so I was independent. I was signed to a label for many years with Mac Avenue Records. My contract ran out on Mac Avenue Records, I think in 2018 or 2019. Then I put out my own album independently called Touch in 2019, which was my own independent. First time I was really independent. Well, actually, I was independent before I even got signed because I was printing out CDs in Virginia, but that's a whole nother story. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was in
yeah.
for a couple of years from 2019, where I put out Touch and then I put out a couple of singles. Most notably, Missing You was another number one song. So I have three number one songs now. Missing You was independent, and it was a number one song being independent, which is a big deal. I put out a couple of other singles between 2019 and 2024. But this year, I signed with a pretty big label called Shawnee. So I signed. Now I'm signed with Shawnee Entertainment, and they will be putting out my next album hopefully this year.
Okay, nice, nice, nice. Now, I have to throw that question out there, given that, how the independent space is growing and, I have artists now that come to see me and they don't know which way to go about it. Should I just take the independent road or should I just, work on a demo first and push it out to record labels? And then they're at the crossroad, but then, you have to make the decision that's going to be best for you. And the unfortunate truth is, labels aren't really looking for, talent any longer. They, moving with this independent growth now, sticking with who they do have and transitioning with how the whole industry is evolving. Whereas, also being an independent, there's not so much red tape. So I'm sure you for yourself now in this era, you don't have so much red tape as they used to be,
Mhm.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Times have changed.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, things are really, really changed in the music industry, even in just the past 5 years, let alone the past 10 years. So yeah, a lot of labels are looking for, and it's, as far as I'm concerned, a finished product, quite frankly, an artist that's already kind of got a following and different things like
Yeah.
I um when it comes to like if an artist wants to sign with the label or not, I think it depends on who you are. Like if you got the tenacity to build a fan base and really put the time and energy into your career, I'd say definitely go for it because there's a lot that you would benefit if you're able to do that. But if you just consider yourself to just be strictly creativity and you don't really like the business side of it, then perhaps maybe a label could help. But I will say labels aren't really handing out record deals like
Yep.
that nowadays. So this isn't this isn't a thing anymore.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's it. It's not there. And I still see, in South Africa alone, so many artists because, the unfortunate truth is, especially if I look at, your lower to middle class, which is where I ideally focus on, they don't have the resources available to them to self-educate themselves, on how the industry is, in this day and age in 2025 and what you can do for yourself if you put in that time and effort and educate yourself, and build a network, build a community of like-minded individuals such as yourself and myself, listen to such podcasts such as this. And I mean, there's thousands of them on there, out there, not just on Spotify, but YouTube alone. But unfortunate truth is they don't have those resources available to them. So, they still, in the studio jamming with their friends, doing awesome, great raw recordings and putting a demo together, hoping that a record label will sign them. But even if they do get that opportunity to present themselves at a record label, they don't even know the legalities behind it as well. They don't even know what comes with a 360 record label deal. They're putting pen to paper, They're seeing, okay, all these fancy things that are presented to them, not knowing that, what they're going to own, what they're not going to own, all of those fundamentals. So hence why, there's guys like us, out here just to guide them, down that road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
yeah.
hopefully they find their way.
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of artists, they don't know about publishing, royalties, and different things like that. The benefits of writing your own music, which is a huge benefit, by the way. So, I mean, that in itself, streaming revenue, it's just a lot, honestly. And probably the same thing when storytelling and writing and stuff like that too. I would imagine that publishing companies aren't handling out publishing deals for authors like that either. I mean, there's a huge movement for self-publishing just as much as it is for artists that are putting their music out independently.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the main reasons I decided to bring authors onto the show. When Mickey first approached me, I was like, yes, because I realized that, what's going on in the music industry is also happening, with authors in the writing world, in the storytelling world. And as I kept, interacting with more, award-winning authors, awesome writers, awesome storytelling, and then, they give their background history as well. And they also share the pros and cons of being independent. I can put my own book together, I can work for hire when it comes for the editing, I can self-publish, and then you get authors that have publishing deals with publishers, they share the pros and cons of that. And then also came across authors that, there's a piece of material where they would want to self-publish, and then there's a piece of material where they will look, okay, let me rather go through a publishing. So you could have best of both worlds as well, but still be your own boss, because now you can structure different types of deals as well. Which is quite cool, really quite cool. And because I saw the similarities, within the creative space, I was like, yeah, I'm game, bring the authors on, and I was right, the same challenges that, independent musician may face, an author is also facing within the writing space as well. So the cool thing now about the podcast is that, you could come on, and no matter what sort of creative you are or what you want to establish for your career, whether it be an author, whether it be a musician, whether it be an illustrator, there's so much to learn from them. That's going to benefit you. So that's quite cool. It just shows you, how close the creative space, the individuals they actually are, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, so, and that's why it's so great, what you're doing here, Keith, bringing on the talent and different things like that. It's so important that you continue to do that. I mean, because a lot of authors and musicians, they're fighting the same battles, and your ability to see that just makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, look, man, what I do is only 20%. You taking the time to come on fills up the other 80%, honestly. It was not for awesome guests and established, in your case, authors and musicians coming on, there would be no value on the show, to help people, within the independent space, which, I got so much gratitude for. Throwing out a thank you there, once again. So the big moment for your career, transitioning into an author with your series. So I want to pronounce this right. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the Zara series,
Zaria.
Do you want to correct me?
Zaria.
There we go, Zaria, right? The Zaria series.
Yes.
So you've included AI, sci-fi, fantasy, and politics, right, into one series.
Wow.
How did this come about for you, and what is the why behind it?
It's crazy because it's interesting that you mentioned it. You mentioned a lot. You said politics. You said a lot of different things in science fiction, which I love science fiction, by the way.
Fantasy, AI, all in one.
It's crazy because I never saw myself as an author. Like, I never thought that I would be an author. That's just something that kind of just happened, honestly. I consider myself a critic of stories, of movies, just like anyone else. So I guess I said to myself, well, if you're going to criticize it, you might as well write your own story. And that's how Zarya,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
started, I think I can't remember where I was. I believe I might have been in Ukraine touring uh, when I started writing the first words of Zarya. This is back in 2012, I believe it was, when I first started writing, or even maybe even before then. And I was using Evernote, and I was like, I got this cool idea about this story, but I wanted to be on a desert planet like Mars, but deep into the future. I wanted to have a Fifth Element kind of feel with flying drones and cars, and also I wanted to have like the population to be like, some people could look like reptiles, other can have long tails, long ears, and different things like that. So that was kind of the idea. I didn't know I was doing world building when I was writing Zarya. And I thought having a girl be the lead role would capture a lot of attention, kind of the underdog, so to speak. She's like 15 or 16 years old on this hyper futuristic desert world, and she's like an expert at coding and putting things together. But maybe people don't trust her or don't like her because maybe she's too young, but she's smarter than everyone, or maybe because she's a girl. Whatever the reason is, she doesn't get all the attention that she should, even though she's the brightest, so to speak. So, in Zarya, she puts together from a junkyard using her own coding and computer smarts that she has. She puts together this device just from a bunch of junk from, the big city, which is called New Sabrinia. Sabrinia is actually a place in Mars, believe it or not. If you look under Mars and look under some of the places, Sabrinia is an actual location on Mars. I'm not saying that this story takes place on Mars, although I will say my idea might have been, say, 6,000 years ago, Mars was futuristic, like way in the future, and then something happened. That's just kind of simmering in the back of the idea of when I'm putting the story together. So a lot of the, the world is very much feels like Mars in a sense, except for Star Wars at the same time, and maybe Divergent series where it's a female that's kind of like heading the charge. She puts together this device that she named Sochi from a bunch of junkyard parts, and she puts it together and builds it, and puts all this coding in it and creates this hoverboard, so to speak, that goes really, really fast, and she's not even supposed to go fly in the air at her age because you're not allowed to on where she lives. You have to have a certain license and all of this stuff to be in the air, but she's up there speeding, flying, and just going faster than everybody, so it's just a adventure in that story. You have to read it because it's great. It starts off in kind of like where because at her age she hasn't met her parents because they were trying to get away from a military leader, and they hid her in this compartment while her mother was being chased down, and they captured her mother, and then she gets picked up by her grandmother, and she gets raised by her grandmother. But her purpose now is to find her parents, who have been locked up since she was a baby. So I don't want to give away the story, but she does some awesome stuff. First book. The second book is it kind of follows up where I'm not going to say what happened because that would completely give away the story, which would not be cool. But I will say that her AI that she created becomes more intelligent and sentient. And it's smarter now. It can control other bots and other drones and things like that. So her coding skills is better, and now all of a sudden she can hack into networks. It's just crazy. So that's Zarya, at least in a nutshell. Yeah. But I hope you read it because I'm giving you the information, but I don't want to give you all the information. So it's weird. I hope I built the air for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the main mandate of the show is, for listeners to get to know you personally as a person. That's why I start off, with anyone that comes on, your day one, and just to give like, a brief summary, small giveaway of what, the storyline is all about. Um, I would love to ask the question, okay, especially with futuristic authors, like what you just explained now. Don't we see, there's a dotted line between fiction and non-fiction again. Don't we see like that's where we are actually evolving right here on Earth, you know?
Yeah.
Like someone could read it and be like, okay, science fiction, and yeah, this is not real and this can never happen. But I think we both know that this is where we are going.
Yeah. And it's, one thing that I try to do in my writing is to, while it is science fiction and it is futuristic, how can I make the reader feel like, well, this seems like this is plausible, even though it's not right now. It seems like it's a device that we could use, in the future, or this could happen, even though we're not there yet. So, we're moving, probably pretty fast into the future, and even with some of my new writing and things that I'm working on, based on some of the stuff that has been happening as of recent, like even with robotics and AI mixed with robotics. And so now that like kind of opens up a whole new idea of what's possible in these types of stories. And obviously I want to expand everybody's imagination with my writing. I want people to just get soaked into a world that's, just like, I like the idea of also being different than the world that you're in when you're reading my stories. So,
Yeah.
So I try to push it beyond, what you can do right now for sure. Like, for instance, in I will say, okay, so in Zarya episode 2, I bring in or is that Zarya episode 3? Gosh, because I don't want to give away the story. Look at me. This is crazy. I'm not gonna I will say animals now and different creatures that mix with technology, so to speak. In one of the episodes, I believe this will be episode 3, which is not out yet. Hopefully, that'll come out this year. Where now Zarya befriends a really big beast that flies, so to speak. So, and then she adds technology to the beast. So it's futuristic. Got animals that don't exist, on Earth, obviously. So that just adds a whole nother element to the adventure.
Yeah, nice, man. This is the second week in a row I've had a futuristic writer come on. And the writer they had last week, his story, is about two individuals as well, and they are traveling 4 light years away, to a new planet. And then we did the comparison, with Elon Musk wanting to take, now humans over to Mars, to build, civilization there. But I mean, his whole mandate with his story is about, we just need to create better living conditions as humans together right here on Earth. So that's why I just bring in, that dotted line between fiction and non-fiction, because, reading about your book and what you just explained, I just see it, actually do happening, in the future. Maybe not the storyline itself, but, elements of your story. We already see it happening. I mean, if you watched iRobot, how many years ago you would have watched it and be like, yeah, but this is not true. This won't happen. But now look, it's happening all around us. It's here.
Yeah,
iRobot, real life, it's here.
yeah, yeah.
So it's crazy. So there's a lot of value, depending, on the readers, how they actually take you in your work. Because if I have to read it, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going into another world. And, that's your duty, for me as a reader to take me into another world. But it's also going to extend my imagination to like, okay, no, this is a realistic world that, one day I will be in, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
Really quite cool. So when it comes to your character development, how do you go about that?
Yeah,
What comes next?
crazy because every character like Zarya, because I have another book called Minor Assassin, which I learned more about writing that second book from learning how to develop Zarya's character, which is you always start off with an idea on what you want their personality to be like. You think about what their struggles are going to be, and also like since she's 15. What kind of a mindset does a 15-year-old have? What type of dialect do they have? What are their struggles and what are their issues? But what's going to bring out their personality really? But it's interesting because the more you write for the character, the more the character develops, so it's like as you continue, the character kind of builds during the story, during the writing of the story, and then you bring in other characters and how their characters, like there's another character in this story called Kizzy, right, and that's like her best friend, and she's more, while Zarya is really good with coding and things like that and computers, Kizzy is more hands-on, like tech, like she's under the hood. She gets her hands dirty. She's, she lives with her father and they fix drone bots. So, she's doing like the dirty, hard, mechanical, you can't have a computer. You actually need your hands type of work.
Yeah,
But the same age, so to speak. So her personality is a bit more blunt, a bit more straightforward. Sarcastic, where Zarya is more like very measured, very thoughtful, very intelligent, a bit more cautious, but then at the same time very bold. So it's interesting because then the more characters you bring in, the more attitudes and just the more it really brings to the story. Like, for instance, her father and the council. There's a whole council, like there's this whole political council that they decide what happens, to the planet, and then there's different characters like the leader of the council and the different science figures, so it was quite, it started off with Zarya, then it expanded into the specific characters of all of these other people. And as an author, it's so interesting because it's actually fun, because you might have an uncle that acts like this. You say, you know what, this character would be great because my uncle acts this way, so I'm gonna kind of make him act like my uncle. or this person is like reminds me of my sister, just in the way that she's, maybe very loving, or so this helps when it comes to character development. But I will say it always starts with something, but it just kind of evolves on its own. The characters tend to really just like they just get more solid the more you write. I guess that's how I want to say it.
Do you ever, as a writer, use your own personal traits, your own characteristics? Do you ever implement that into the main character?
Okay, so if I were to say, so for Zarya, for instance, I will say a lot of people underestimate her intelligence, and they might dismiss her, so to speak. Like the council people will dismiss her, but then actually she created with her father the most intelligent power cell that's better than the scientists that work for the government, so to speak. And she's 15, but they underestimate. Maybe people might underestimate me in some type of a way. For Minor Assassin, since I've traveled to Japan, I wrote Minor Assassin as a young African-American boy who goes to Japan, which I've been to Japan. And it's interesting because you see the world in a different kind of a light, and they see you in a different kind of a light because, they have all of these opinions about Americans, so I wrote in Minor Assassin that, some Japanese young lady says something like, you're not going to be able to have all of your favorite video games and things like that. You're here to work or whatever, something like that. But just assuming that all American kids do the same thing, so So, and then also, feeling a bit strange, so to speak, where, John, who is a minor assassin, who goes to a village in Japan, he feels a little bit out of place because there's not a lot of people there that look like him. So I've experienced that in Russia. I don't think that there was I don't think there was a black person for 1,000 miles. so, so, yeah, I don't know what to say. I felt out of place, but definitely unique.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, no, cool. No, thanks for clarity on that. I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, man, where haven't you been? You
Oh
know?
man, a lot of places I haven't been to China, which I want to go. There's many places. I've been a lot of places, but there's a lot of places that, like I said, I haven't been to Thailand yet. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, haven't been to India. You know, so quite a few places.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? Like for me personally, this is just completely off topic, because you brought up Thailand. I've been to Thailand, and that's one place, like if you really going down a spiritual route, you
Mhm.
know, definitely one place that transformed my whole life and maybe just bring more self-awareness to myself on, which direction I really want to go down in life. And it also brought the fact that I was so lost for so long in so many
Mm.
parts of my life, and if
Okay.
it wasn't for that calling or that journey that I made for myself in 2019, and it was all based on this calling of, hey, just go to Thailand, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. I would
Hmm.
have still been going down, this wrong route in life, doing things with my life that brought no meaning, where there
Hmm.
was no purpose at all, you
Mm.
know, not living a fulfilling, happy life. That's what that did for me, just off topic. People are great, culture is great, the respect is great. As I said, there's so much that you can learn, from people, and you just see so much unity happening, that part of the world, which I absolutely loved, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
absolutely loved. It was, yeah, and it was actually one place I wanted to permanently move to, which was planned to happen in 2020, and COVID happened. And, but even though I still wish somewhere deep down, that it did happen for me, when I look at, the work I'm doing now and the people I'm interacting with the podcast alone, there was a reason for it, not happening at that time. Always believe there's a blessing in disguise, as Winston Churchill used to say, for whatever, happens in life. There's a reason behind it. There's a reason that I wasn't meant to be in Los Angeles last week. There's a deeper meaning reason behind it that I don't know, but the universe does know. God knows, and I just gotta trust in that.
yeah.
But yeah, completely off topic there. Yeah, yeah. But good wisdom also, to share with listeners. you
Hmm.
know
Hmm.
so you've implemented artificial intelligence, into your work, being a musician, being an author, and this is the cherry on top of the cake. The question I always ask any creative at the end of the show: where artificial intelligence is going now, do you
Hmm.
see it as something that's going to be beneficial to the creative space, or do you see it as a threat?
I don't think it's a threat. I mean, I think artificial intelligence is just as much as a threat as maybe the very first cell phone. I mean, when technology decides to come along, there's always resistance because it's strange. We don't know what to do with it. But if you think about all of the advancements that we've made in technology and medical and medicines, a lot of these things we didn't know were coming. And many people reject a lot of new technology when it comes as strange as, but the thing is that, as the world evolves and as we as humans evolve, you can't stop it. You can't stop
Yeah,
intelligence. You can't stop technology. You can fight against it, but at what cost? Because the truth of the matter is not only is it here to stay, it's here to continue to get better. And I think artificial intelligence is going to help solve many problems that we couldn't have solved. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to do bad things. There's going to always be bad actors. You don't need artificial intelligence to do something horrible. People are doing horrible things all the time. So the way that I see it with regards to creatives, I think that we should embrace it. I don't think that artificial intelligence can replace human intelligence, because we have a soul, we have passion, we have love, we have care, we have experiences, we have things that artificial intelligence can't replicate. Like for instance, like as a performing artist, you can't have an artificial AI perform for you and feel you when you perform as an artist. So, but I think that we can use it to help us, whether that is, it could be anything from song titles to, ideas on show development and concert development and organizing day sheets and different things like that. That's using it, to help. You can have it help you, put together outlines and different things like that. But you just can't have it replace you. And as long as you work alongside with it and use it as a tool, just like anything else, it'll probably help you.
Yeah. No. Thanks for sharing your opinion on that. And the reason I asked the question a lot is because, a lot of creators are getting like, scared and worried at the moment now. Okay, I'm gonna spend, the next few months or a year putting my first book together, and now you get the scammers that are out there and they're creating, one new book a day using artificial intelligence. They're uploading, they're monetizing it. Should I stop? Should I stop and work because, where am I going to find my audience? But you will find your audience, and that is the message. Now, if you just put out organic work that's coming with passion, that's coming directly from your heart, and you are telling, like a proper story that actually means something, you will find your audience. It's there. You just need to put in the work, to find it. But I 100% agree with you on what us as creators can actually use artificial intelligence, to help us in our personal life to deal with certain things that we just don't have the time to deal with.
Exactly. And the thing is it's like, not only because, there's a lot of scammers out there that are putting out a bunch of books and things like that, just using artificial intelligence. But here's the thing though, what I've learned is people connect with you, as a person. Like, it's not just art, it's also who the artist is. And they're buying just as much into you as they are into anything that's being written. So if you really want to have a strong long-term career, it's really going to be about who you are and people connecting with you as an individual, which is the whole purpose of art is the artist.
And that's why it's so critically important to focus on building your brand. Build your brand, build your own community, because they're always going to be there to back you up. They're always going to be there to support you. It's a triangle. It's a triangle. And you're building, the moment you release your product, whether it be your final master track, you have to build a brand around, or the message has to be around that track or that book. Then you're building your company brand, and then you're building your personal brand. It's 100%. I agree with you. Thanks for sharing that. So part 3, en route. You're not sure when it'll be out. How far do you want to go with that series?
Part 3 is not going to finish the series. So it's just not, it's going to finish and answer some questions, but the series is going to continue for quite some time as far as I'm concerned. It's just I will say, I know that there are probably a lot of people that are waiting for episode 3, but I will say, to my defense, I'm touring and working on music as well, which makes it a bit more complicated to be as consistent as I would like to be. So but at the same time, my passion for writing has never wavered. I always have. In fact, there are other stories wait to put out as well. So as long as I continue to have that passion, my readers will continue to get, written material from me.
Yeah. Now I was gonna conclude with that, man. Like, I mean, as you said, there's so many things happening at once, especially for you, your musical career, your writing career. Like, how do you manage it all? Do you ever get overwhelmed about it? Does anxiety kick in? You know, does it happen? As you said, there's expectations for both ends. You probably have, okay, your fans now listening to your music and like, when's Jackiem going to drop his next album? Meanwhile, you're busy with the book. Then you're like, okay, maybe I should focus on the book.
Yeah,
let me focus on the music, and then the people are still waiting for the book now.
Yeah.
Do you ever get into those moments?
I think the question you should have asked should have been, do I ever not get anxious or because when it comes to organizing and managing both careers, I'm still learning how to do it, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm still figuring out how to divide the time and give the right amount of time for both things. Obviously, music is a prime career because that's got a leg up because I've been doing that a lot longer. So it's something that I'm still learning, but I will say it's getting better, and I'm getting better at it. Obviously having people to help you, like my publicist Mickey, and having a good team of people to keep you focused is obviously important. My career is a serious career, so it does require attention. Again, I'm still learning.
It's so, like recently, like I've always been into, meditation, and I just do my best, like day in, day out, just to be present, which can become difficult in an overwhelming life, and I'm sure you can relate to this, like even if you're just on a podcast, and you're chatting, and in the back of your mind, it's like, shit, tomorrow I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do this. And then you're like, be present. Be present. It takes a toll, it takes a toll, I'm sure. But you seem to be managing it well. And as you said, you're learning as you move along. It's like asking someone, are you the good guy or the bad guy? And, I don't know. That's the correct answer. Like, I don't know. That's when okay, it's someone who you can trust, someone who's trying to figure it out. He's giving you an honest response. I just don't know. But learning as I move along.
Exactly. And that's the best thing that we can do is learn as we move along.
Yeah, 100%. So, Jackiem, where can people find you online?
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot of places because you're on both ends here, But where would you love people to go to get it all?
The best place is just, on Instagram or Facebook. On Instagram at Jackiem Joyner. It's just as long as you spell my name correctly, you should be able to find me. Obviously, my website is JackemJoyner.com. But yeah, just look me up on Facebook /Jackiem Joyner or Instagram at Jackiem Joyner.
And do you combine both your brands, for musical and writing on, within your social media platforms? Or do you like to keep it, separate?
I created a different a profile called author.jackiem, but I'm still working on how to manage both profiles without leaving one behind.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, man.
So while it's a great idea and it makes perfect sense, the question is are you going to be reading messages there? So I'm putting people more into, well, they can still go to both of them, but I'm trying to combine everything now, just so that I don't have to manage so many different things.
Yeah, man, I get where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. And where's the next city? Where are you going to next? Or is there anything planned?
Yeah, I just got back from Dallas yesterday. I was in Dallas over the weekend for a show. My next show will be May 2nd. I'll be in Milford, Connecticut. But I have a full tour. You know, I'll be in Connecticut. I'll be in Wisconsin. I'll be in Houston, North Carolina. I'm also going to Cancun next month. So all over. I'm keeping it busy.
Yeah. You definitely need to love what you do, because I would have been like, Jackiem, do you even have a social life?
Yeah. I mean, I have to. Actually, Twitter makes you have a social life, believe it or not, as an artist.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, as you said at the start, that just loving what you do,
Mhm.
no matter where you gotta go, where you gotta be, where you gotta show up, whether it's on stage, whether it's on a podcast, because you love it and you enjoy it, it doesn't really have like, this major strain on you, like you're forcing yourself to do it. You enjoying it. You loving
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. And that's the key. Enjoy what you do, love what you do, and you'll do it forever.
Yeah, your space is where every creator out there, needs to find their way into. No
Yeah.
matter what the schedule is, I'm loving what I'm doing. This is what I wanted for my life. So, even though it's overwhelming and there is challenges along the way and there's a lot to figure out, but main thing is that I still have a smile on my face each and every single day. And that's what counts more above all.
Exactly. Being passionate about what you do will create that smile on your face every day, and you'll love it every single day, forever.
Yeah. Jackiem, my brother, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Much appreciated. Apologies once again for the connectivity issues that we had. But I must say it was much more better than last week. Much
Oh,
more better than last week.
okay. Well,
So
this
I guess there's something happening in Los Angeles, that's not happening in New York, that
I enjoy
gave
my
us much more better connection.
yeah. This
Yeah.
was fun. It
But
was
thanks,
great.
man.
This has been
Yeah, yeah.
a
Yeah, no, thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing, brother. Keep doing what you're doing.
thank you.
All right, we'll chat again soon, my man.
Yes. Bye bye.
Hey, bye.
Yep.